People are complex. We like to simplify them. So when we're dealing with someone, we think we have a snap judgment about them. They're like this or that. They don't understand people. They don't understand what motivates. They can't get inside the mind of the other person. I think humans are actors. From the age of 2 years old, 3 years old, we learned how to manipulate our parents by crying when we needed to cry, being charming, saying certain things. We learn how to act. Being a leader means being assertive, being strong, talking in a certain tone of voice, carrying yourself in a certain way. Each of my books kind of comes at a historical moment. So the 48 Laws of Power was at a moment where I think people were being really hypocritical about power. There were a lot of self-help books out there that were so soft and gentle, like everything is sort of Pollyannish about power, and you just need to be positive and have an open attitude and be nice to people and you'll get ahead. And it really pissed me off because my experiences in Hollywood and elsewhere, in all the different jobs I've had, is that's not what the world is like. So I felt angry. And when I'm angry, I write a book. And so Mastery, I was really angry because I thought people don't know how to make things anymore. They're so techno-obsessed. They're so into their algorithms. They're so think they can get anything easily or quickly. And we're going to find ourselves in a world where bridges are going to fall apart. People don't know how to design things or make things or write a book anymore. And I was really worried about it. So I was angry, so I wrote Mastery. So the laws of human nature, I think we've lost a sense of psychology, of what really motivates people. I think we're living in times where people have never been more self-obsessed, more self-absorbed, for whatever reasons. And social media plays a huge role in that. And so people are kind of locked into their own little world. You may not realize this, but I think that the source of most of the pain that people feel in their life, the source of most of their failures in life, why they hit a wall, why they can't get any further in life, is because they don't understand people. They don't understand what motivates. They can't get inside the mind of the other person. They're always thinking of themselves. And because of that, they don't have the ability to persuade or influence people to get them to move in the direction they want. Their relationships with people are very thin and brittle. There's no real deep empathic connections. It's getting worse and worse out there. But also a lack of a self-awareness. That, as you were pointing out in the beginning, everyone thinks it's the other person that's narcissistic or aggressive or is envious or has a dark side or is repressed or is short-sighted. Not me, no. So a lack of a self-awareness and the lack of what really motivates people. I encounter it all the time. I do a lot of consulting with very high-powered people in business and politics, and I was always shocked at how they could be so smart about some things, but be absolutely ignorant about people. Like they hired somebody who ended up being the partner who stole the company, as if a person like that doesn't leave traces behind them in their past that they were going to do that. You know, on and on and on. I could give you 100 different stories of the same thing. So I'm always shocked at how people don't have a sense of the psychology of the people they're dealing with. They don't know how to judge people's character. They're basing their opinions of people on their appearance, whether someone's charming or good looking or articulate, and they're not looking behind the surface, behind the mask. So that anger kind of fueled this book and was sort of one of the main reasons I wrote. Well, I'm basically challenging this idea, this notion that people have that acting in life, in being social, and in wearing that mask is a bad thing, as if we need to be more authentic and be just who we are. And I think that's completely bogus. I think humans are actors. From the age of 2 years old, 3 years old, we learned how to manipulate our parents by crying when we needed to cry, being charming, saying certain things. We learn how to act. And when we grow up, I have earlier in that chapter, I make the point if you met a person that said exactly what he felt every time, you know, you would hate that person. He would never have any friends. So let's be honest about this. We're all acting. When we're in the office, we're not telling our boss exactly what we think about his stupid ideas or what he's wearing or his clothes or etc. We say what we think is appropriate for that situation. We are courtiers. And I want to bring some honesty into that and say, stop fighting that need to be an actor. In fact, what you want to be is you want to be a better actor. You want to be good at this. Well, it depends on the situation in which you're being truthful. You need to be truthful about yourself. You need to be honest about who you are. You need to be honest that you have a dark side, that you have aggressive impulses, that you can feel envious. So you need to be truthful about yourself. But being a social animal, which is what we are, means that you have to mold what you say and how you act to the situation that you're in. You can't just simply blurt out what you feel. That's being an animal. That's not being a human being. A human being controls his emotions, has the ability to control what he or she says. I see 1,000 times in business situations, the number one sin that people make mistakes in negotiations or in meeting, is they talk too much. They say things that they shouldn't have said. They reveal things about themselves that they shouldn't. You need to have more self-control. You need to be better at wearing that mask. And you need to enjoy this sense of being a good actor and playing a role. Some of the best people who are the most successful are really good at playing a role, are really good at this sort of acting aspect. I mean, all my books are trying to make you, the reader, more outer directed. So as I said, we're increasingly self-absorbed. We're always thinking about ourselves. Do people like me? Did I say the right thing? You know, am I being respected? And I want to flip the scenario. I want you to look and think about the other person, what they need, what they're thinking, their psychology, their background, their problems. And starting from that position, you have the ability to influence them. And that may lead into some of this acting ability where you know how to present the proper front for them, etc. I know I get a lot of flack for this in my books, and I've had it since the 48 Laws of Power and the Art of Seduction. But I'm saying to be a social animal and to be able to get along with people. Of course, if sometimes you need to be honest. I don't think you should be dishonest with your wife and your children. Those are personal situations. I'm talking out in the business world. I'm sure you, when you're addressing your thousands of employees at those, I've been to that in Vegas, you're playing a role. You're wearing a mask. You're showing them a kind of persona that's going to impress them. You're being a leader. Being a leader means being assertive, being strong, talking in a certain tone of voice, carrying yourself in a certain way. You're an actor. And the better you are in front of a crowd in doing that, the more people will think of you as a person of authority. Right? I do. But I'm saying you need to be aware of the person that you're dealing with. Now, some people are truly toxic. And we've all encountered them in our life. They're no good. They can ruin your life. They're aggressive, they're selfish, whatever it is. And my book is full of stories of those types. Now, when you're with them, you need to be able to suss them out. You need to be able to see the signs that you're dealing with a toxic person. So I'm telling you to be aware in the moment that every person you deal with in life is different, is an individual. You, Patrick, have a background that's unique, right? You've explained some of that to me. The more I know about your unique background, about what makes you who you are, the better I'm able to deal with you. It doesn't mean I have to become a fake person with Patrick. It just means that when I know that you have these particular sensitivities and these particular values, I have to be aware of that, and I have to not offend you, you know, or do things that are going to turn you against me. So it's not like you have to make everybody like you, but you have to understand every person that you deal with and what makes them tick and what makes them an individual. Sometimes you do have to alter yourself and how you talk to a person depending on who they are. And you're not bipolar. This is where the argument gets sidelined and is not right. When you are in your daily life and you meet Jordan Peterson, for instance, you talk to him a certain way, and when you meet somebody else who maybe you don't respect as much, you suddenly become another person. I'm saying you're not aware of how deeply you are acting in your everyday. You're always shifting your persona depending on who you meet. You'll notice in your own life, there'll be people you meet who make you kind of aggressive. You'll be very aggressive and assertive in them. And other people you meet who will make you very intimidated, and you'll be the exact opposite. You change depending on the people that you're with. That's sort of natural, that's how we are. But you're not aware of that. You're not aware of how much you are actually. That's why you brought up the Lyndon Johnson story. The brilliance of Lyndon Johnson as a communicator was that he tailored his message to every different person that he met. He wasn't the same with Hubert Humphrey as he was to Dick Russell, as he was to John F. Kennedy. He was a master at always sort of shifting depending on the vulnerabilities and the values of the person he was dealing with. So you need to deal with people as individuals. People are complex. We like to simplify them, some more than others, but everyone is more complex than you think. And we like to simplify them. So when we're dealing with someone, we think we have a snap judgment about them, that they're like this or that, but they're more complicated than you think. And so the more you can figure out what makes them different, what makes them an individual, the better your chances of having the ability to influence them. Influence is an important part of this book, and some people might think that that's kind of something evil, that I'm being very Machiavellian. But as I've made the point from the 48 Laws of Power, there's no worse feeling in life than the fact that you can have no influence over the people around you, that you can't influence your children or your spouse or your boss or your colleagues. We all want the ability to persuade people, to be able to move them in some direction. So there's nothing evil about that, in my opinion. Some of the most aggressive, powerful people in history had incredibly high levels of ambition, and they had to learn to control that on their rise to the top. That's how people become successful, is by their ability to channel their energy. So you have to be aware that the game is social. The winners in life have a wider base of operation. They have more supporters, they have more allies than other people. You're not going to get very far in life if you're alienating everyone around you, right? You have to learn self-control. I mean, all my books are about learning how to control yourself. You're asking me how you learn to control yourself? It's baby steps, it's little things. I mean, I have all sorts of lessons in all of my books. Like, if you're angry about something, you don't act on your anger. You wait 24 hours, 48 hours before sending that email, before yelling at someone. These are little steps you take to learn to control that. If you're highly ambitious, and you show too much of it, sometimes it's good to show ambition, but you need to show a certain amount, not too much to frighten people. Well, that's what these books are about. They're being self-aware that in a certain situation, you enter an office, 30 people, and you suddenly show that you want to be like the number one person. You're going to find your path really difficult in life. But if you show that you don't have any ambition, no one will respect you. So you have to hit that proper medium. And you learn how to do that. You learn by your mistakes, you learn by the people you've pissed off, that you've alienated, and you learn self-control.
Powerful.
I was on the board of directors of a publicly traded company run by an entrepreneur who was very successful, but who had no self-control. He couldn't control himself in an interview. When he was interviewed by a reporter, he would talk about his sex life. He had no ability to censor himself. And when he got angry, he yelled at people. He made so many enemies that he ended up destroying himself. I was part of the group that fired him as the CEO of the company, and then the company just completely tanked because of that. I see that all the time. We're looking at that with Elon Musk. You have a person like that who has no self-control, and it becomes a problem. Like, your ego gets in the way. I've seen people like that. They think that they cannot be challenged. They think so highly of themselves that they can't stand anybody challenging them. So yeah, you created a publicly traded company now. If you don't want people to challenge you, if you don't want the difficulties that come with a publicly traded company, then don't do it. It's very simple. If you don't want those kind of walls, those obstacles that people are going to put up, then don't do it. But he made that decision. And once you make that decision, and you're a strategist, you're not just an entrepreneur, but you're a leader and a business person, you have to make compromises. You have to control what you tweet. The car business is an extremely difficult business. It depends on mass producing something at a reasonable price. And so you have to have a scale that you can manage. And he never really had that. He didn't build his company up in an organic, slow fashion. He was too ambitious. He went too quickly. I saw that with the man who I was on the board of directors. He expanded too quickly, which gets back to your ambition thing. So you have to be careful and you have to be a strategist in life. And I think someone like Elon Musk lacks a degree of self-control. I read an article recently about the guy who took over, I believe it's Best Buy. He's really smart. He's doing an incredible job in an industry that's dying. You know, a large store that's selling technology. That's a terrible business to be in. He's extremely wise in how he treats his employees and how he built his business slowly. I think Reed Hastings is a great example. He's made some mistakes, but I think he's quite a smart strategist. He's almost too great a strategist.